Hello, friends. Today I'll be delighting you with some scary stories from Reddit again. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Lie back, close your eyes, and enjoy. Story 1. I work in a hospital. They brought us a girl who survived the murder of her family. I thought the night shift would be quiet until I saw 3 paramedics wheel a gurney into the emergency room with Emily on it. It was pouring rain that night. She was 13, maybe 14 years old, and her fragile body was covered in dried mud and blood. On her left arm was a black bruise stretching from her wrist to her elbow. Scrapes marked her legs and shoulder. The girl was unconscious, her clothes and hair soaked through from the rain. "What happened?" I asked, gripping the railing of the gurney as they wheeled her into the trauma bay. The officer, a heavy-set man with a tired face, flipped through a small notepad without looking up. His badge read, Detective Harris. "The girl called 911, reported a break-in," he said. "Said she locked herself in her bedroom. When we arrived, we found her unconscious in the backyard. But the worst was inside the house." "What do you mean?" "It was a gruesome scene," he said in a deliberately calm tone. "The girl's parents were in the bedroom, dead. Bruises on their necks, broken fingernails, signs of struggle, and water everywhere. We never figured out where it came from." I pressed a gauze pad to the wound on Emily's arm. In several places, the skin was torn, her arm swollen from impact. All signs pointed to a fall. "Looks like she fell from somewhere," I said. "Yeah," Harris replied. "Her room was on the second floor, directly above where we found her. Looks like she tried to escape." "Did you catch whoever did this?" Harris hesitated before answering. "Actually," he said, "we have no evidence anyone actually broke in. No signs of forced entry. No indication anyone was in the house besides the family. Security cameras didn't catch anyone." I applied a temporary bandage to the girl's arm and called for a nurse. We moved Emily into an exam room. The nurse started an IV and checked her vitals. While I filled out paperwork, Harris stepped away from the bed. He stood against the wall, furiously writing in his notepad. Then Emily, still unconscious, stirred for the first time, and a quiet moan escaped her lips. "The older brother is here," she murmured, as if in a fever. "Don't let him in." I managed to drink 2 cups of coffee before the nurse called me. "She's awake." I expected Emily to be frightened when she woke up in the hospital, but she sat in bed completely still. Her gaze was fixed on the window, where rain still poured down. She placed her hands on her knees, clenching her fists tightly. Detective Harris entered the room, approached Emily's bed, and pulled out his notepad. "This isn't the best time," I said. "She's not ready to answer questions." He ignored my words. "Tell me what happened," he said, staring intently at Emily. "You called 911 and said you were afraid of your older brother." His pen hovered over the notepad page. He waited. Emily remained silent, still staring out the window. "Where was he?" Harris continued. "Did he threaten you? Did you see him hurt your parents?" I stepped between them. "Enough! She's injured and she's a minor." Harris closed his notepad and left. I couldn't understand why he was speaking so harshly to a girl who had just endured such terrible events. Emily kept staring out the window, her fists still clenched. I examined her arm again. The swelling was already going down. "Do you want something to eat?" I asked. "My arm hurts," she finally said, as if not hearing the question. "Nothing serious. It's just a bruise," I said, adjusting the pillow under her shoulder. Everything will be fine soon. She nodded. I assumed her silence was a reaction to trauma. Some people cry, others withdraw. I noticed her glance at the stack of magazines and books piled in the far corner of the room. They'd been left there by a previous patient. I brought her the stack of books. She picked one up, curiosity lighting up her face. "Do you like reading?" I asked. She nodded and began telling me about books she'd read, how she loved science fiction, and how the new school her father made her attend didn't have as big a library as her old one. When she mentioned her father, her voice wavered. "Only my older brother gave me books," she said suddenly. "That's when I first read science fiction." "Who is this older brother you keep mentioning?" I asked. Emily was silent for a few seconds before answering. "He's my brother," she said. "He's gone, but he still talks to me. Usually he's kind." "Usually?" "Sometimes he gets angry. He does bad things, especially when he sees someone hurting me." "What kind of things?" She wouldn't look at me. "Like what he did to Mom and Dad today." We talked a little more with Emily, though she didn't return to the topic of the murder. Then I stepped into the hallway. I found Detective Harris hunched over his notepad at the nurse's station. His eyes were wide, his gaze focused, almost manically detached. He beckoned me over. "The cameras show no one entering the house," he said. "No leads. I need to talk to Emily." "She mentioned an older brother several times," I said. "Maybe you should start there." "Yes, just like in the 911 call," he replied. "But only 3 people lived in that house, and we've learned some disturbing details about the girl." "What details?" "We found out Emily's been seeing a psychiatrist since she was 9. Also, she was expelled from her last school for a violent incident. I'm trying to contact her therapist and the school to understand what happened." My stomach tightened. I didn't like where this was going. "She's just a child," I said. "She couldn't physically have harmed 2 adults." "I'm not saying she did," Harris replied. "But children are capable of terrible things. You have no idea what I've seen in this job." He paused, rubbing his forehead. "I don't fully understand what happened either. But something about this older brother story doesn't add up." His phone rang, fortunately. "1 second," he told me, and stepped aside. I also felt something was wrong here, but I pushed the thought away. Other patients were waiting. I returned to Emily about an hour later. She was alone now. The rain hadn't stopped. She was still quietly reading, and I thought I'd never seen a child process grief so calmly. I moved closer, asked how she was feeling, and examined the bruise on her arm again. A few minutes later, Detective Harris entered the room. Seeing him, Emily lowered her head. "Emily, did you try to strangle a girl at your school?" he asked, approaching her bed. "Is that why you were expelled?" Emily clenched her fists and remained silent. "And this older brother who hurt your parents," Harris continued. "Doctor, Yannick told me you often talk to him when you're alone, don't you?" He leaned in, trying to meet her eyes. "Tell me what really happened that night, Emily. Then I can help you." "He did it," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "My older brother." "Enough of this nonsense," Harris snapped. "Enough," I said, stepping between them, pushing Harris away from the girl. "She's in shock, and you can't interrogate her like this. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure this isn't allowed." Harris stepped back. "Andre, right?" he continued, addressing Emily now more softly. "That was his name. He died 5 years ago in the lake." Emily froze at the name. "Who's Andre?" I asked. "Her older brother," Harris said, opening his notepad again. "Drowned in Lake Sammamish while hanging out with friends. Terrible tragedy. Emily, is that who you're talking about?" For the first time, tears streamed from Emily's eyes. "This isn't an interrogation room," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Get out. Now." "No, let him stay," Emily interrupted, lifting her head. "I'll tell you what happened." "Sweetheart, you don't have to say anything without an adult present who's responsible for you. Your grandmother will be here soon. We just need to wait." She shook her head. "I can do this," she said. "I'll tell you about it. I have to." My chest tightened at the triumphant expression on Harris's face. I said I needed to attend to other patients and left the room. I felt sick leaving them alone. A few minutes later, I was sitting in the break room, finishing my third coffee of the night, listening to the rain drum against the window. Thunder rumbled. Several lights flickered, then suddenly went out. The blackout lasted less than a minute before the backup generator kicked in. When the lights came back on, some bulbs glowed dimmer than usual and flickered as the system stabilized. Walking down the hall toward Emily's room, I noticed something wrong. Her room was dark. I opened the door and felt something cold and wet soak through my shoes. The floor was covered in water. Emily still sat on the bed, her face frozen in terror. She looked at me as if trying to warn me about something, but it was unnecessary. I saw him on the floor. Detective Harris. He lay in a puddle of water, his body motionless. His bulging eyes stared into emptiness, his neck bent at such an unnatural angle that I felt nauseous. My first instinct was to call for help, but Emily spoke first. "Don't make a sound," she whispered urgently, "or he'll hurt you too." I wanted to ask who she was talking about, but the words stuck in my throat. And then I realized I was about to get my answer, whether I wanted it or not. I felt something behind me, something standing against the wall near the door. Its shadow stretched across the floor, tall and broad. I slowly turned around. It was pale and towered more than 1.5 meters above me. It was vaguely human-shaped, but the limbs were too long and thin. It had no hair, no clothes. Water dripped from its body, its torso covered in algae and pond scum. Its eyes were white, empty, and unblinking. "Don't hurt her, Andre," Emily whispered to the creature. "Please. She's good. I'll go with you this time." It didn't react. It just kept staring at my frozen body. Emily spoke to me again, her voice now firm. "Leave. Slowly. He won't hurt you if you do." "I can't leave you like this," I said, gathering the last shreds of my courage. The room filled with a low, wet growl. The creature didn't like my words, and every cell in my body screamed that it wanted to do to me what it had done to Harris. "He won't hurt me," Emily said. "He just wants to protect me. Go." I realized there was nothing I could do, and I obeyed. Slowly, step by step, I moved to the door, turned the handle, and stepped back into the hospital corridor. The creature let me pass, its wide eyes following me. The moment I was out of the room, I ran. I ran faster than I'd ever run before, straight to the head nurse's station, screaming for her to call hospital security and the police. Then I went back to Emily's room, my legs weak with guilt for having abandoned her. I'd left the door open when I fled, so I could cautiously peer inside, trying to see what was happening. Emily was gone. Only on the bed, on the blanket where she'd been sitting, lay the book I'd given her. and the window she'd been staring through all night was open, wind blowing raindrops inside. Story 2. My friend wanted to find evidence that the ghost town was haunted. We discovered something much worse. I didn't go because I believe in ghosts. I went because my friend kept talking about the town. He mentioned it the way you'd mention a shopping mall, a diner, a popular spot. Like everyone should know about it. Like anyone living near the mountains with a car should visit. It's not even that far, he said for the third time that week, leaning against the passenger window while I gassed up the car. Old mining town, abandoned. Their stuff is still there, tools, all that. And they say ghosts live there. I grimaced. What ghosts? Miners with pickaxes? He grinned like I'd already taken the bait. Exactly. He was the kind of guy who could talk you into anything without even trying. He'd decide something would be fun, and you didn't want to be the one to ruin it. Honestly, the month had been rough. Too much time at the computer, too many nights falling asleep with my phone in my hand. The usual modern routine. The idea of spending a day in the mountains seemed like a good chance to reset. So, on Saturday morning, we met, had coffee, and hit the road. The last stretch was a gravel road with patches of snow in the shadows, even though it was already spring. The kind of road that rattles your car. The kind of place where, after passing a rusty "no service" sign, you start mentally calculating how far you are from cell reception. My friend had coordinates on his phone, but when the signal dropped completely, he didn't even blink. He pulled a paper map from the glove compartment, like it was still 2009. See? He said, tapping it with his finger. We're practically there. The abandoned town wasn't marked with a sign, just a clearing in the forest where the road widened into a flat, rocky area, like a pull-off that used to be a parking lot, before the forest decided to take it back. The town was visible from there. Low silhouettes of houses half hidden by bushes, collapsed roofs, the dull corner of a corrugated metal building, a row of poles that once carried electricity. It didn't look haunted. It just looked forgotten. We parked and got out. The air was cold enough to sting your face, but the sun was bright and clear. It smelled like pine and wet earth, and somewhere in the distance, water was flowing. My friend couldn't stand still, excited like we'd just pulled up to an amusement park. You ready? He asked. Ready to be disappointed, I said, and he laughed. We started where Main Street used to be, if you could even call it that. A dirt road running between buildings. Most of them were just frames now. Rotted boards, broken windows, doors hanging on one hinge. Technically, old stuff really was there. Empty tin cans, rusty nails, a cracked sink, an iron stove with its door hanging open. He kept pointing at things like they were artifacts. Look at this branding. Old bottles. Dude, that's a ledger. He was right about the ledger. It was stuck in a drawer, half fallen out of a desk, inside one of the buildings. The pages were swollen from moisture. The ink had bled into fuzzy lines. He didn't touch it, just leaned down and started photographing it. That's when he mentioned the hiker. He did it casually, like he'd been waiting for the right moment. You hear about the guy who disappeared here? He asked. I looked at him. What guy? He put his phone away and lowered his voice like someone might hear. Happened last summer. Hiker wandered off the trail nearby and vanished. They searched, dogs and everything. Nothing. People online said he was posting photos like, I found a ghost town, stuff like that. I snorted. People disappear in the woods all the time. Yeah, he said, his tone shifting, less excited. but this guy vanished right here, and you want to play search and rescue, I finished. He smiled, but it was tight, not real. I just want to see if it's true, like any traces here, signs someone stayed overnight, or you want to be the guy who finds the creepy clue, I said. He raised his hands. Okay, yeah, maybe. We kept going, past a general store with almost nothing left of its front wall. Shelves inside were knocked over. The register lay on the floor, half covered in dust and mouse droppings. Glass cases smashed. As we walked, I felt that quiet pressure that comes over places once filled with people. Like the air itself remembers something. Then I saw something that stopped me cold. A handprint. Not on the wall. On glass still intact in a window frame. It was dusty, but the print was clean, like someone had pressed their palm against it recently. 5 fingers, normal size. A slight smudge at the base, like they'd dragged their hand down. Hey, I said. This is... My friend leaned closer. Looks like someone's been here. Recently, I added. He shrugged like it didn't matter. People explore, that's the point. We kept moving. I felt uneasy, but I tried telling myself my brain was just making up danger. The place had that kind of vibe. Then I noticed something that actually freaked me out. Just a flicker in my peripheral vision. Left side, between 2 buildings, deep in shadow. It looked like fingers. Too long. Tips dark, like they were stained. I whipped my head around and saw nothing. Just a piece of broken fence, branches, and a strip of fabric hanging that might have been part of a curtain once. You okay? My friend asked. Thought I saw something, I said. Animal? No, I said, because those fingers weren't animal. That thing couldn't exist. I tried to convince myself otherwise, but deep down, I already knew. Something was wrong. We kept going. About 20 minutes later, we found the school, further down the dirt road where the town thinned out. A low building with a collapsed roof on one side, and a broken bell tower leaning at an angle that made me want to stay far away. No front doors. Inside, the hallway was open to the sky in places where the roof had caved in. Sunlight fell on the floor in narrow rectangles. We went in anyway, because curiosity is a sickness. Old desks inside, some stacked neatly, some broken. A chalkboard still hung on one wall, grimy and dusty. A row of coat hooks. Above them, a faded alphabet poster. The kind of place that should have kids' voices echoing, and their absence made the silence unbearable. We sat on broken steps in front of the school, drinking water and snacking. My friend pulled out his phone and started taking pictures, like this was a tourist attraction. Wait, he said. Stand by the car. No way, I said. I'm not posing in front of a haunted school. It's not haunted, he said, smiling. It's historic. I rolled my eyes, but I stood up anyway, because I knew he wouldn't let it go. He stepped back, framing the shot. Okay, look off to the side, like you're thinking about how sad this is. Shut up, I said, but I did it. He snapped a couple photos. Then he took a selfie, stepping next to me with his arm around my shoulder, both of us grinning like idiots. Nice, he said, scrolling through them. Then his smile faded, just a little. What? I asked. He turned the screen toward me. At first, I didn't see anything. Just us, the school behind us, the dark hallway. Then I saw 2 white dots. In the background, deep in that dark hallway. symmetrical, like eyes, not reflecting light like animal eyes, like they were glowing from inside. Pure white circles. My breath caught. "Probably a raccoon," my friend muttered. "In a school hallway?" I asked, skeptical. "They get everywhere," he said, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. He touched the screen, zoomed in, and it blurred. The dots stayed. "Could be dust," he said, "or lens flare." "It's in the shadow," I said. My friend locked the phone and shoved it in his pocket. "Fine, we're leaving. Happy?" I was about to say yes. Yes, let's go, back to the car, pretend none of this happened, when I heard the sound. It was like crying. Quiet, muffled, like someone with their hand over their mouth so they wouldn't be heard. It came from deeper in the town, past the school, where the trees were thicker and the buildings were in worse shape. My friend froze. We looked at each other. "Did you?" he started. The crying stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong, like someone had turned off the sound. Then we heard it again, farther away, quieter, like it was moving, or at least wanted us to think so. My friend swallowed. "Okay," he said. "We're leaving." We walked toward Main Street, fast but not running. Running would mean admitting we were scared, and pride is another kind of sickness. As we walked, I kept catching movement in my peripheral vision. Fuzzy shapes, fleeting things, shadows that didn't match the sun. Then we heard something else. A scream, but different this time. It was a scream of pain, short and sharp, cut off fast, like someone had silenced whoever made it. My friend stopped, turning his head like he was trying to place it. That's not. "It's not real," I said, but my voice sounded hollow. Because that scream was real. You couldn't mistake it. My friend reached for his pocket, pulled out his phone. No signal, of course, but he did it anyway. "We should call." "Later," I said. "Car. Now." We passed the store again, and I saw something that turned my blood cold. The clean handprint on the glass was gone. The dust it had pressed through was wiped away, like something didn't want us seeing it. We rounded a corner between two buildings, and I saw it again. Not just movement this time. A hand gripping the edge of a wall. Long knuckles, pale skin almost gray in the shadow. And the nails. They were like claws. Not sharp like a cat's. Thick and cracked, dark at the tips, like dried blood. I saw it for less than a second, then it pulled back. I stopped so fast my friend almost ran into me. "Did you see that?" He looked at me, eyes wide. "Yes." That's all he said. After that, we didn't talk. We just walked faster, even though every cell in my body wanted to explode into a sprint. The crying started again behind us. Not louder, but not fading either. Like whoever was crying was following. We passed the school again, and I couldn't help glancing into the hallway. The white dots were gone. The hallway was darker than it should have been at this time of day, like all the light had been drained out. I caught a faint, sour smell, like wet coins or rotting meat. My friend whispered, "Don't look." We walked. Then a new kind of quiet settled over the town. Like even the wind stopped slipping through the cracks in the buildings. The silence pressed so hard my ears rang. Then I heard footsteps behind us. Not human. Not like boots on gravel. More like something dragging across the ground, then stopping. Like it was listening. My friend's breathing got faster. He glanced back over his shoulder, his whole body tensing. "Don't," I whispered. "I need to know," he whispered back. He looked again. Whatever he saw, his face went white. He didn't scream, he didn't curse. He just whispered, "Oh my God." Then he ran. He bolted, full speed, and I followed before my brain could catch up. Because when someone next to you runs like that, survival instinct doesn't ask questions. We ran toward the pull-off where the car was parked. The path wasn't straight. We had to dodge between buildings, bushes, fallen beams. Behind us came a sound I can't describe without feeling sick. It wasn't crying. It was something imitating crying. Like it had learned the shape of the sound, but not its meaning. It turned into a wet, shuddering thing with short, sharp pauses, almost like laughter. Then a piercing shriek, the kind you hear in horror movies and roll your eyes at because it's a cheap trick. In real life, it's not a cheap trick. It's just true. My foot caught on a root. I stumbled but stayed up. My friend was ahead of me, maybe 15 meters. He kept looking back, running blind. "Don't look!" I yelled. He looked anyway, and it took him. It didn't move like an animal. It didn't move like a person. It came out of the gap between buildings like a shadow, moving with that horrible smoothness, like it didn't have to obey the same physics we did. My friend fell sideways, rolling, grabbing at the ground, anything. Then he screamed. One sharp, piercing scream. I ran toward him, even though I already knew I wouldn't make it. And I saw it. The whole thing. It looked like a starving deer. No fur. Skin stretched tight over bone. Pale grey like old ash. Spine and ribs jutting out like it had starved for years. Legs long and twisted, like bones that had healed wrong. And the hooves, if you could call them hooves, were split and cracked, like they'd been forced into shape. The head was the worst. Deer-shaped, but wrong. The face pushed back, too many bones jutting. The mouth opened wider than it should, full of jagged, uneven teeth like shards of glass shoved into gums. And the eyes. Not animal eyes. Those two white dots I'd seen in the photo, not glare. They were its eyes, empty and bright like silver coins. It looked at me, held my gaze for seconds, like it was weighing whether I was worth the effort. I screamed at it, don't even remember what. Nonsense. It didn't flinch. It snapped its head toward my friend, who was scrambling backward on his back. Then it moved again. One quick step, a blur of pale limbs. My friend's scream turned into a cry of pain, then cut off. I saw his legs jerk, once, twice. Then silence. I stood there, frozen, my brain refusing to accept that the guy I'd had breakfast with an hour ago was just gone. The creature's head turned to me. It tilted like it was curious. I ran. I ran until my lungs burned, ran toward the pull-off, the car, anywhere but there. Something hit my back. Not hard, just the tips of claws grazing me, like testing how deep they could cut. Pain shot through my shoulders, burning, tearing. My breath caught, vision blurring. I stumbled, but I didn't fall. I kept running. I heard its steps behind me, not like hooves, like wet wood snapping. I rounded the corner and saw the car, parked where we'd left it. Sunlight on the windshield. For a second, it felt like none of this had happened. Like we'd just made up a scary story about exploring an old mining town, and we'd laugh about it later. I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. hit the unlock button. The car beeped. I yanked open the driver's door and dove inside. My friend's seat was empty. The realization hit me like a weight. I slammed the door, jammed the key in the ignition, and turned it. The engine coughed, offended at being asked to work, then started. I threw it in reverse without looking, gravel spraying. For one horrible second, the tires spun. Then they caught. I swung the car around and looked up. The creature stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden in the trees. It wasn't charging. It didn't look afraid. It was watching. Its ribs rose and fell slowly, like it had all the time in the world. Like it could wait until I made a mistake. Like it knew distance didn't matter the way people thought it did. Then it opened its mouth. And this time, the sound wasn't a shriek. It was a sob. Perfect. Human. The same broken crying I'd heard before. Perfectly practiced. I stomped on the gas so hard my leg cramped.
The car lurched forward and I tore down the gravel road, bouncing over ruts, not caring about the suspension. My back burned with every move. When I finally hit pavement and touched the spot on my shirt, my fingers came away red. I drove until I got cell service, not even realizing I'd been holding my breath the whole time. As soon as the bars appeared, I pulled over and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. When the operator answered, my voice came out wrong, too high, too hysterical. I told them where I was. I told them my friend was gone. I told them we were attacked, and I knew how it sounded, but I didn't care. They asked what the attacker looked like. I said, like a deer, and hated myself for it, because it sounded insane. Then I added, no fur, gray skin, wrong mouth, eyes like headlights. I heard the operator's breathing shift. That moment when someone tries to stay professional while their brain screams, "What?" They said officers were on their way. Search and rescue, too. I sat on the side of the road, shaking, feeling my shirt wet with blood on my back, staring at the tree line, afraid to see movement in the shadows. Hours later, a deputy took my statement. An EMT cleaned and bandaged the claw marks. 4 long scratches across my upper back, not deep enough to kill, deep enough to prove I wasn't making it up. That afternoon, a search and rescue team went in. They didn't find my friend. They found the town, sure. They found our tracks. They found the school. They found where he fell. There was blood, drag marks on the ground. Then the tracks vanished into brush, like the earth had swallowed him. They also told me something else, quietly, like they didn't want anyone to overhear.
There'd been other missing hiker reports near that town. More than one. People wandering off trails, people following sounds, people going to look for the ghost town. I asked if they thought the mining town had anything to do with it. The deputy didn't answer. He just looked at me for a long moment and said, "Don't go back there." And I haven't. But sometimes, when I scroll through my phone, I see that photo of the school hallway. I zoom in. I look at the 2 white dots in the dark. I remember my friend saying, "Probably a raccoon." And I think about how fast "probably" turns into too late. Because the last thing that thing did, before I hit the gas and left my friend in that town, was cry like a real person. Not because it was sad, because it knew it works. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to rate the video if you liked it. Until next time, friends.